Hello, dear brothers and sisters, and everyone that's listening from all around the world. We keep getting comments that from where you're listening, and that's amazing that we hear that the word is spread all over the world. Yeah, we continue in Habakkuk, and today we will study two verses, Habakkuk 1, verse 6 and 7. I am raising up the Babylonians, that ruthless and impetuous people, who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwellings not their own. They are a feared and dreaded people. They are a law to themselves and promote their own honor. As before, turn to the book of Habakkuk and read verses 1, chapter 1, verse 5 to 11. First, read these verses out loud several times, preferable in your own language. Imagine hearing this from God after you have been pouring out your heart to Him, crying for justice and relief from wicked men all around you. Now read it again and substitute Babylonians with your own enemy. That can be Russians, Chinese, ISIS, Islam, or any nation or group that you may think is your enemy. This is how Habakkuk probably felt. Take your time, pause the video, feel free to do it. Over the next week, we will take a very brief journey through the history and geography of the ancient Near East. I hope it will help us understand how God uses nations in the world to enact His will. In fact, it might help us understand how God is using nations. The ancient Near East, and that's from today's Iran to Turkey to Egypt, is often called the cradle of civilization. It is where human civilization basically began in about 3500 before Christ in Mesopotamia, around the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, and about 3000 BC in Egypt, around the Nile River. To set a point in time, we know that Abraham, later Abraham, came on the scene around 2100 BC. He was born in Ur of the Chaldees in present-day Iraq, and then traveled to Haran in modern-day Turkey, then on to Canaan, present-day Israel, as we can read in Genesis 11 to 12. In the next video we will cover the Egyptians. When one thinks of God rising up anything, we usually envision something good and beneficial. In this case, it is the Babylonian Empire, Chaldeans, which was founded by Nabopolassar and reached the peak under Nebuchadrezzar. Another good description can be found in Jeremiah 26, who was a contemporary prophet to Habakkuk. A fierce nation. This was not what Habakkuk was expecting. He was praying for relief from injustice. However, Yahweh had a different plan. 120 years earlier, God punished Israel, the northern kingdom, which was conquered and destroyed by the Assyrians in 722 BC. The only thing left was the southern kingdom of Judah, including the tribe of Benjamin. However, for decades, many prophets such as Zephaniah, Jeremiah, and Habakkuk were speaking out warnings from God to the kingdom of Judah, that they too would be punished if they don't turn from the wicked days. They didn't, so this time, rather than the Assyrians, it would be Babylonians. As Habakkuk wrote his lament, using matched word pairs, God respond in the same format, a ruthless and impetuous nation. The word ruthless indicates fierce and bitter. Impetuous indicates that they are rash and in a hurry. Well, we wouldn't notice it, but these words rhyme in the Hebrew. We are also told that the whole nation was characterized as ill-tempered. As one commentator put it, like a bear robbed of its cubs. This mighty nation strikes out irrationally in every direction. They sweep across and seize. The Babylonian army moved quickly in their conquests, seizing homes and properties and then destroying what they did not want. It is interesting that Revelation 20 verse 9 uses similar wording for Satan's army. They marched across the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of God's people, the city he loves. They are feared and dreaded. The word for fear could also mean majestic or awesome to the point of instilling fear. Dreaded also indicates an utter terror and amazement, like seeing an overwhelming army approaching, dropping your weapons, fleeing in terror. They promote themselves and are a law unto themselves. The Babylonians were a law unto themselves. They didn't care about those whom they conquered. Their laws, their culture, and their ways would prevail. Okay, brothers. Some Christians appear to live as if they are in a movie where it's good guys versus the bad guys, equal in power and in war. If the good prevails, God wins the battle, but if the bad guys win, then Satan must have won that round. But the Bible teaches that God is always in control. He is always ultimately sovereign. In fact, what was so troubling for Habakkuk was that although the Babylonians were in the driving seat of this great war machine, God was using them as a tool to discipline his people. Look at the world today. Do you see God's hand in the nations and in the world events? I must confess, as the world gets more and more chaotic, I often wonder what good can come from this. But I'm also confident that God is in command, and He knows what He is doing. As we can read in 1 Timothy 2, verse 1 and 2, I urge, then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. Take some time today and pray for our nations, for our world leaders, and for our world. And do know that God is in control. God is bigger. Brothers, sisters, thank you for listening and studying the Word with us. I definitely hope to see you in the next video. God bless you.